Now, in one of the Upanishads, Mundak Upanishad, it's stated that there are two kinds of knowledge, Apara and Para. Apara is the kind of knowledge which can be spoken about, which can be bound in language. So all the normal sciences that we study in the schools or in colleges, because study can only be in terms of what the teacher tells you, right? So it's bound in words. So it's linguistic knowledge or language tied knowledge. So that's all called Apara, which is lower. But the knowledge of the experiencing self, namely knowledge of consciousness, is Para. And Para cannot be described because Para is beyond words. What is bound in words can only be what is properties of objects or properties of abstractions or abstract categories that you can think of. So that can be bound in words. So knowledge has two kinds, Apara and Para. And in schools and colleges, they can only teach you Apara. For Para, you must go to the Vedas or the Upanishads. Now, not in the words themselves, but meditating on what you have in these books can help you transform, so to speak, and go to the very heart of your being. Now, one of the statements that is made in one of the traditions is Shivoham. Shiva aham, I am Shiva. And Shiva is that consciousness within us, within each being. Pratyek prani mein wahi jo consciousness hai, chetana hai, that's called Shiva. And the Bhagavad Gita also says, within each prani, I am Maheshwara, ki main Ishwar hoon. So the idea of consciousness complementing physical reality is unique, and that's what sets Hinduism apart from other traditions, because almost all other traditions speak about individuals, of course, but primarily they speak about the soul. For example, in Christianity or in Islam, you speak about the Ruh. Now, Ruh is not quite the Atman, although the word Ruh itself is derived from a Sanskrit word. And how do I know it? Because in the Vedas, you have the idea of Urvara as the physical manifestation, and Indra, Urvara and Urvan, Indra, who relates to the energizing being within the world, is called Urvan. Now, we know from Avesta, now sadly, very few Indians have studied Avesta, which they should, because Avesta came after the Vedas, and Avesta is the precursor to Persian literature, and Persian literature influenced also the Arabs, because Persia was east of Arabs. So the word Urvan, as the heart of the individual within the bodies, became Ruvan, and Ravani in Persian, which is flow, is also from Ruvan. From Ruvan came the word Ruh, but it's not quite Atma. Why? Because Ruh was seen as a separate individual within each being, within each body, within each living individual. And that's why, because it was still primarily body-centric, the idea of life in paradise, or Jannat now, in the same body became central to the conception of that religion. And in the Abrahamic tradition, largely, while in the Hindu tradition, in Hinduism, you see each one of us as mirroring the entire cosmos, yat pinde tad brahmande, as in the pinda, which is the self, so in the entire cosmos. So it's the same Atman. This is counterintuitive. We are the same self, although our minds are different. You know, fundamental to this distinction is that all of us are different minds, where our self-understanding is determined by our personal journey and our memories, right? All our memories are different, but the self is the same. Now you might say, how do we understand that? Shiva is also in Sanskrit text called Prakasha. It's the light which falls on our brain. It's like, maybe another way of looking at it is a radio does not create the sounds that you hear. The sounds come from somewhere else, and they are embodied by the circuitry of the radio or the circuitry of the television. So likewise, we are illuminated or illumined by Shiva, which is the light which is within us, and this light is transcending. And so this is a beautiful and very subtle idea, which is able to literally explain everything. The moment you say Aham Brahmasmi, which means that within me is the entire cosmos, or I am Atma, or I am Atma Brahma, or if you say Pragyanam Brahman, this is another of the Upanishadic Mahavakya, or if you say Chaitanyam Atma, as in the Shiva Sutras, that this Chaitanya, that this awareness of consciousness itself is Atman. It's something hidden, because that is the general naive idea that maybe my Atma is something hidden within me. I don't know what it is. No, what the Vedas say is this Chaitanya itself is the Atman. And if you can only turn your perspective around, and rather than identify yourself with the contents of your mind, right, which are of course going to be different, and where your emotions play a big role. Your emotions say, hey, somebody has hurt you, so I must hurt that person, or this or that. Another tradition, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But that's the conversation, the discourse of the mind. The consciousness is the sakshi, is the drashta, right? So there, everything is the same. And that's where knowledge resides. And that is the very heart of Hinduism.